Hi, this is Peter Wink. I want to welcome you to a very, very interesting video. This is my wife, Stephanie. She's an amazing woman. It was interesting. We were doing a video shoot just a little while ago. We were taping a whole bunch of different things. And she turns to me, and I was asking her some questions about how that went, and she was answering me. And then she asked me a really interesting question that I was just floored by. Something that I wish I actually would have done a video on, but I decided that we should do this together, and I'll answer the question and talk with her about this because it was that important. So we literally had cameras set up, and that's what you're going to hear now is us actually discussing this topic, which is motivation. Do you want to reiterate what the question was you had, and maybe we'll just start there?
Sure. My question was, if somebody has a goal in mind for where they want to be in the future, right? They recognize, here I am today, but in the future, in this whatever designated amount of time that's where I want to be, that's the kind of person I want to be, those are the kind of goals I want to attain, but they're having a hard time getting started. Just trying to get the ball rolling. Like, what advice do you have for people like that, just to help them get going? I brought up the word motivation, and you didn't seem to feel that that was the best fit. So what would you say to people who know where they want to go, but they just need to start moving in that direction and are just finding it hard to take that first step?
It's a great question. And I'm going to be answering her and talking to the camera at the same time. So if it's distracting, just listen to the content. Don't worry about the video. Basically, motivation in and of itself doesn't work. It's very short-lived. It's the same reason why you go to seminars and for a day or two you get all pumped up and ready to take on the world, and all of a sudden our self-image kicks in and it's like a rubber band. It's stretching, and it snaps right back. Maybe with a little luck, the rubber band stretched a little bit and you progressed a little, but usually it really doesn't progress very much. What generally happens if you're not pursuing a goal is your self-image kicks in. Your self-image is kicking in and saying, no, you can't do that. There's always a reason when we set a goal and we don't start moving towards it. And usually if somebody does a little analysis on themselves, they'll listen and they'll hear the little voice within that says you can't do it. Or it may be you're hearing a parent's voice. It may not even be your own voice. It could be a parent's voice from the past. It could be a boss who kicked you down at one time and said you couldn't do something. But here's the key to all this. The key is to unravel all that limited programming that you have. And that's not something that we could do here in a 2-minute video segment. It's a little more involved in that. But it can be done. You're just showing an example of how that works to limit people. So what I would say is the best thing to do to start building your self-image outside of working with us at the IBMS Master Society, which obviously you have a leg in already, being involved, knowing me and being married to me, and knowing Dr. C and all that good stuff. I'm being a little funny here, but it fits. The main thing is you take the first step. And here's the key. You take the first step. Time doesn't have to be perfect. There is no perfect time. Right? We've talked about that before. You can look at your watch. The word perfect is not on your watch. But you take that first step. So it's like these candles. You're here. But then you want to get here. Here. Your goal can be here. Same thing. Another step. Here. You don't need to go here to here. It's kind of like running a marathon, folks. I've run a bunch of marathons. I've never thought about the finish line and the 26.2 on the day of the marathon. Never. What I always did was I ran 26.2 miles, 1 mile at a time. Never thought about 26.2 or I would have never finished. You don't want to think about all that. And that's another thing that happens with a lot of people is they're thinking too much about all the details. They're thinking about all the steps and all the hurdles and all the different things that they're going to encounter, which, by the way, is mostly fear-based. It's all fears, because a lot of those aren't even going to happen, and then quite a few are going to come up you don't know about. That's why life is such a journey. It's an adventure. It's fun. It's fun to get to your destination. See, that's the thing about success a lot of people don't even understand is that the end point doesn't really matter. The whole idea is the person you become on the journey. So what I would say to you is take that very first step. Write down what your goal is, what your objective is, and then just work on, okay, now how do I get there? And just draw a very simple to follow, step-by-step action plan, knowing that you also have to be flexible along the way. Because step 1 to 2 may seem easy and it may work fine. Step 2 to 3 may be more difficult. You may find that what you thought was the right step from 2 to 3 didn't end up the right step, but that's okay. All she would do is learn about something that didn't work. So basically you change things up, you erase that step, put down a new step based on your new information, see if that falls in line with the other steps you have now, because that may have all changed, and just go step, 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 and all of a sudden you reach your goal. That would be my best recommendation for you. But in the end, if you're not taking action on something, it's usually fear-based. And a lot of it is you're just afraid that you can't get to where you want to go because you're thinking about all the different obstacles and things in between.
Now, there's a couple things you said in that answer that brought up a couple more questions in my mind.
Okay.
You're talking about taking baby steps, and you made me think of that movie, What About Bob? You know, where Bill Murray's character was so paranoid about everything that it was suggested that he takes baby steps, and that kind of became his mantra. You know, one thing at a time, and it makes for comedy in the movie. But you're saying it actually really works. You're saying that your baby steps are definitely a valid way to attaining your goal. Now, can there be too many of those baby steps? Like, should a person limit how many steps they're going to take to reach that goal, or does it really not matter, whatever is best for that person and that goal?
I think that the answer to that question relies on what your goal is. If somebody wants to be president of the United States, that's one set of milestones, and those are called milestones. All the steps within a goal are called milestones. I forgot to mention that. If you want to just get from here to upstairs, right? We know how many steps are on the stairway. I mean, we have to add in, you have to stand up, you have to think about where you're going, you have to turn your body, and then you have the different steps. It really just depends on how big and how grandiose your goal is. But remember, every step in itself is a goal. So you also have to keep that in mind. They're milestones to a bigger goal, but each step is a goal in and of itself too. Each milestone is a goal. And it's really a baby step. And I use the term baby step a little funny here, but it's true. It's just like a baby learning to walk. We never say to it, oh, well, you fell. You know, sorry, you can't do it anymore. No, the baby gets up, takes another step, falls. Maybe next time it takes 2 steps, falls, 3 steps, falls, pulls itself up, you know, does everything it has to do, and eventually it can walk. It's the same thing with any other goal. So no, I would say don't worry about how many steps there are. There could be 1,000 steps, there can be 5 steps, there can be 2 steps. Just depends on what you're doing.
Okay. You mentioned several times, you talked several times about a person's self-image and about how it takes quite a while to unravel all the negative programming that's associated to how somebody sees themselves. Would a first step towards that unraveling be self-affirmations? Do you believe in self-affirmations? Do they work? Would you encourage people to use them?
Great question. And here's my answer to that. Yes and no, affirmations do have a place, but they also can be very destructive. And let's start with a famous saying. Affirmation without action leads to delusion. Let's say that together, and I'm not being condescending. There's a reason I'm asking you to repeat this. Affirmation without action leads to delusion. Okay. Here's why. If you say, I'm a millionaire, over and over again, the law of attraction would say you'll attract being a millionaire. I say the law of attraction, A, I don't even know if it exists, but B, it won't work. Go on the Forbes 400 list, and I want to see anybody listed there with a description of what they do that says they did affirmations and became a millionaire. Here's the thing. If I'm taking action steps towards getting to become a millionaire, and I'm just using millionaire as an example here, I could become a millionaire, and I could use affirmations and say that because I'm on the path of a millionaire, and I'm striving to get there. If I'm just sitting here and I'm saying that over and over again, nothing's going to change. So I would say affirmations are fine as long as it's followed up with action, because you want to think like a millionaire to become a millionaire. Everybody really is a millionaire in their mind. It's just their money hasn't shown up. They haven't taken the actions to go get it. Making money is not a really difficult thing. It really isn't. It's just a matter of taking certain steps to get there, and part of it is how you think. But again, thought and action go together. So I would say do your affirmations to feel comfortable for you, as long as you're following it up with action.
What about, see, now when you say self-image, I think of how I feel about myself as a person, not necessarily the goals I want to achieve in life, but like how I feel about myself. So, in my head, self-affirmation is really, things that you say to yourself, like, I'm a worthy person. I'm a good person. I deserve the good things in my life. Those type of things. So in my head, that's a self-affirmation. You kind of applied it to goal setting, though, and I can see the connection there. But you also said affirmations work, yes and no. If it comes to the affirmations the way I'm thinking about it, do you still have the same feeling, or is that a situation where it could work? And maybe the action item there is look at yourself in the mirror and say, and Dr. C says this, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am somebody. You do that long enough, and maybe it really starts to sink in, maybe it starts to unravel. Can you talk more to that?
Sure. I think that what you're saying, though, goes in line with your actions. Unfortunately, there's people out there that are going to say they're a great person who are out murdering people. They think that they're a great person, too, for what they're doing. I'd have to say that deep down, they probably know what they're doing is not right, even though they may say something like that. Their idea of being a great person may be being a great murderer. I'm using that example just to kind of to exaggerate this point a little bit. But to what you're saying, I'm a good person, if you feel you're living the life the best you can and feel like a good person as a result of that, there's nothing wrong with you affirming it to yourself. I can't see why you wouldn't. But I think self-image, too, which you mentioned, goes far beyond, because everything is a part of our self-image. How we talk, how we think, how we act, how we dress, the home we live in, the car we drive, the type of a career we have. See, that's all self-image. And all of it is like a big puzzle. I know you're a huge puzzle builder and you do a great job at it. But think about it. If you have any of those pieces missing, now picture the puzzle being your self-image, right? If one piece is missing, what happens to the puzzle?
It's incomplete.
Exactly. And it's the same with your self-image. So to your point, I definitely think it's always good to reaffirm what's true for you. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Good.